Greetings, welcome back to the channel and thanks for joining me once again. Well, today, something different. We have got, perhaps just a short video I think, just a quick after build review of the AFV Club British CBRT FV101 Scorpion tank, as we call it. And here we have it here. I'll stop it rotating, you can have a bit of a closer look, it might help if it's not moving about, jiggling around. Yes, it does like to move about a bit. Let's zoom him in a bit for you and then we can get a bit of a proper look at it. Just completed this in the last 24 hours. There's not been much else to do in the last 24 hours. You may have noticed the way I am dressed. I look like it's winter again, and it jolly well feels like it's winter again in the UK because we're getting this sort of storm. I don't know if it's got a name, but we've got a bit of a storm going on here. And it is jolly cold. We've dropped about 8 degrees in temperature from sort of Saturday. Today's actually Tuesday, but anyway, it's gone very chilly, and it's not quite feeling like May. Doesn't feel like spring at all, if we're being honest. Anyway, onto the Scorpion. This has been a little bit of a tricky build actually. I've had a few troubles with it, if I'm honest. Basically regarding the wheels and the tracks. The rest of it was okay really, but the running gear was a bit of a nightmare. Not tragic, not terrible, but not quite what I've been sort of used to lately, if I'm being honest about it. Basically it's moulding issues, I think, to be quite honest. Most of it is things that were to do with, I bought the extra workable track set from AFV Club. Well, of course AFV Club lost their president, I forgot his name, forgive me, but out of deference for him, I don't want to be too critical. But these extra working tracks were not worth anything really, because it was just the moulding quality. They weren't able to be clipped together, but unlike Ryefield or some of the manufacturers that make these ones that do work, it didn't work, and you sort of end up with the worst of all worlds if you're not careful. So I'll show them to you actually, I'll show them to you so you know what I'm talking about. They just ping apart, they won't hold, they're not very integrated. We need to talk about the instructions as well, because of course we did a review on this kit, didn't we, back at Christmas time or thereabouts, and here I have got some of the said working tracks in inverted commas. Not working very well, I have to tell you, and I'm going to explain what the problem is really. So in terms of the shape and the look of the model, I think it's really good. I know I was quite enthusiastic about this, but you'll recall that there was some issues with the instructions, and there were some silly mistakes in the instructions as well. I'm just trying to think what the obvious ones were now. Apart from the language, which was very bad, and I'm trying to remember, zoom you in a bit so you can see what I'm looking at here. Trying to remember what we really had. Now here's the biggest weakness, or one of the biggest weaknesses in the kit actually. These suspension arms for the running gear, they don't locate well, they're just not a good fit. And so you end up having to be very careful to make sure that you get them kind of flush to the bottom, because they're a very sloppy fit. So to get the alignment is really difficult, in fairness. And then we had the wheels, and we've got this system of having these like a pin that goes through the wheel, and again the fit of these is incredibly inaccurate, very sloppy, not well moulded. And it was a miracle that I was able to get all these moving, which they are. I can actually you can actually run along if you're very careful. But I really wanted to have a complete working assembly, and it wasn't really working out the way I'd intended. It's a bit delicate, and yeah, and some of these, again, the positioning of these and the actual the way they house in, they're not well located. That's the problem. Then we'd got one or two areas where the instructions get very vague at times. Not the best instructions I've seen. Reminds me of that new Kinetic Harrier, that's got bad instructions as well, but anyway, I think they come from a similar place, don't they? Taiwan seems to be a bit of a local thing that's going on there. And there was a specific mistake that I found in the instructions that unfortunately just slipped my mind. But there was 2 mistakes, quite apart from the language, you know, calling it the Royal Army. Don't know. I think they mean the British Army, and other things where they've just Desert Storm. You know, okay, that's spelling mistakes. Just somebody hasn't checked it. But there were some more fundamental errors in the way they went about it. The track joins. The tracks themselves was designed as rubber bands because I ended up going back to them. Obviously, you'll have realised this because you are seeing me now with the so-called working track links. The problem with these is that when you put them on, they're so delicate, it's such a poor join because of these very poor moulding quality that basically, under any stress at all, well, you see it there. I didn't use any force, and it just comes apart. They won't hold together basically, and that's the problem. And believe me, if you try and force them, you know, you're going to be, it's like chasing a ghost. So you can put them back in together, relink them, he says, theory, relink them like that, and then as soon as you get it on the tank, it'll just split apart. So obviously the way you'd have to get around this is to just, you'd have to glue them with adhesive, which kind of defeats the object to a certain degree, you know. And actually the rubber band tracks were not that bad. They're actually one of the better rubber band style I've seen for a while. So this is why I kind of abandoned these, because they were just so delicate. They just get, look, I've done it again. That was no force. They just ping apart all the time. I'm afraid it becomes just nauseating and time consuming for no real benefit, and they don't look much different to the rubberizer ones at the end of the day. So I paid extra for those. It was about another £11 and it was a waste of money, quite frankly, so I'm a bit disappointed. Anyway, don't want to be too negative because it has come out, I think, looking like quite a nice Scorpion. I don't know what you think, but I was always a big fan of this vehicle because I did this very brief video which people may have seen and thought I'd gone a bit mad. Frontline UK, which is a 1976 comic strip cartoon from a comic called Bullet, which didn't last very long, only lasted for about 18 months, and then it didn't really succeed in the UK, and it was absorbed into the Warlord brand, if you like, because it was actually produced by the same company. But they had this Frontline UK where they basically it's Scorpion tank crew are on an exercise at Salisbury Plain, and halfway through the exercise the RAF arrived to do the mock bombing run. They arrive about 15-20 minutes early, and they realise actually it's not the RAF, this is a real bombing run, and they're actually being bombed, and a lot of the tanks on Salisbury Plain get taken out, and they bolt for cover, this crew, and then basically lead a resistance to an invasion of the UK in the summer of 1976. So it's actually quite and the artwork is what really makes this thing, isn't it? Yes, the idea sounds a bit silly, I know, especially when you realise that they portray these invaders that it looks like they're North Korean, actually, and I think that was the intention, really. It was North Korea. How they got here without being spotted across the North Sea or wherever, you know, I don't know, but anyway, we won't get into the details too much, but it's quite exciting. It's got the most beautiful artwork, which is so good, some of the best cartoon art you'll ever see, quite frankly, and yeah, I say there is a cartoon of it, and I'll show you one or two stills from it maybe in a second, but anyway, let's have a look at this Scorpion, because what was special about this vehicle, it was a 3-man tank, not really a tank, it was an armoured fighting vehicle, but it was intended, of course, to be very light, be very fast, and it was very much scheduled in the early 70s to protect the Harriers for the RAF. Excuse me. So it became very popular with the RAF regiment, and excuse me, and consequently it would be in Germany. A lot of them were stationed in Germany, places like Wildenrath, places like that, and it was ideal. So you know, you could have in the Cold War, the idea would be that the RAF would have Harrier bases that they would choose at short notice in forest clearings, and these Scorpions would arrive to defend them and create a landing ground for them that was secure. And obviously they've got a cannon, they've got a main gun which is 76mm. So it's actually the same calibre as a World War II Panther, but it hasn't got the power or velocity of a Panther tank, 76mm at all. It had a 6-cylinder petrol engine from Jaguar, a V6, and it was a cruising range of about 440, 450 miles, which is quite a long range. It's just like a car, you know. And it had a maximum, they say maximum speed 60 kilometres an hour. Well, I was led to believe it was nearer 70 miles an hour, but anyway, it was a very fast tank. This was, you know, faster than any other tank in the world at the time that it came out in the early 70s. So it could cover the ground like a Jeep, basically, really quick, faster than a Jeep, thanks to its engine, the fact it wasn't very heavy. So it's a light tank, it's an armoured personnel, you know, it's designed really to be a defensive tank rather than an offensive tank. It's not a main battle tank for slugging it out on the battlefield. It's to hit and run strikes and defend and run, and you know, it can take out personnel obviously and stuff like that. So it's quite, for its brief, it's a very impressive tank. It looks good, it's almost like a sports car. Let's have a closer look at it. It's a very sporty looking little thing, isn't it, this Scorpion? It's got this sort of it's of the era of, you know, those sports cars like the Lotus Esprit in the UK, very dart shaped sort of pointy little tank, low profile, ideal for fighting amongst, you know, the British countryside or German countryside, amongst hedgerows and all that kind of thing. And it was it fulfilled its requirements very well, and of course it saw service as well. First of all, it was they also stationed it in Belize, by the way, somewhere else it was sent to. Stationed in Belize, of course it saw full-on service in the Falklands War, Malvinas in 1982, and of course for that conflict it literally was the perfect vehicle, because they had this and the Scimitar, which had the bigger cannon on it. But they were ideal to cover ground really fast. They were light, you know, they could manoeuvre, they could change position very, very quickly, and in a very fluid type of battle, which is what the Falklands was like. It was ideally suited to that sort of campaign. And of course it then later went on, sort of 8-9 years later, it was in the First Gulf War, and the Scimitars also served in the Second Gulf War in 2003 as well. So it's been in combat, and it's been quite a successful vehicle. Supporting troops, striking, hit and run sort of raids, you know, 2 or 3 of these can cause a lot of trouble and then be gone before you've had a chance to react. And it was a very effective little tank. The problem was with this vehicle is, which I was amazed to actually learn about actually, the biggest problem they had was that the Jaguar engine used to, whether it was a sealing issue I don't know, but they used to suffer from a lot of monoxide fumes getting into the actual cabin. Now in the Frontline UK comic strip they talk about the fact that it was designed to be gas proof, which is why it has all these periscopes. You can see them, can't you, the little blue tinted glass. Lots of periscopes popping out. But it's like it was externally well sealed, but it wasn't so well sealed internally, and some of this gas from the exhaust basically somehow used to get into the crew compartment, and there was a lot of examples where crew had complained and crew had become ill from monoxide poisoning, presumably, which is quite dangerous, you know. And you can see the exhaust here actually down the side. I'll just let it move around into position. So here's your exhaust. The engine compartment is here. The driver sits right next to it, so he's probably the one that's going to suffer the most, I don't know. So he sits there, the engine sits next to him, and then here we have the exhaust coming out. So quite why they had this issue, what the actual details were, I'm not sure, but it was a major problem. And the Ministry of Defence looked into it and were very sceptical, thought we had a load of soldiers that were, you know, a bit soft. And then they did some testing with gas testing equipment, and they found it was all true. It was definitely a problem. And they never quite solved it. The Scimitar, of course, suffered from the same thing. So ultimately, it was kind of withdrawn probably 5 or 10 years before it should have been, because they just couldn't get on top of it. And the later vehicles that they've brought out since have been a bit safer, shall we say. It's a real shame, because I think as a design it seems to work well. Can't quite get my head around why they couldn't resolve that, but there we go. Anyway, so that's it. I'm going to make this a nice short one today, just a quick chat about AFV. Yeah, I mean, I kind of enjoyed the build, but I found this quite stressful, because I put a lot of time into building those. Each one of those has got to be cut off the sprue, you've got to polish them up, make sure they fit, and they weren't nicely moulded. So there's been a lot of work going into all those little bits, and it's all to no avail really, and I've ended up with the rubber tracks, a bit disappointed. So if you do buy the kit, and I think if you want a Scorpion you haven't got much choice, because I don't think anybody else does a 1/35, I would just say, if you forget these working track links, don't go there, waste of time. Just use the rubber ones and do your weathering or whatever. I got a bit cheesed off because I put so much time and effort into this for no reason, you know. I mean, I could have made them work if I glued them, but I don't really like gluing my tank tracks. I like them to be movable. I think if you're doing a diorama it's different, then it's okay, you know, but that's the way it went for me. Anyway, a couple of other things. We're going to move that away, out of the way, and we're going to talk about something else in a moment. If you just give me 1 second. I just want to start by talking about, without going back over old ground, but I just want to, again, if I can, stop. If I can just get this focused in for you. This is the Frontline UK comic strip that I alluded to a second or two ago. Let me switch that off. Now then, here we go. Frontline UK. So you can see some of the things I'm talking about. This is this comic strip cartoon. It came out in '76, and there were several episodes of this wonderful. Look at the artwork here. It's really special, beautifully hand drawn. You know, so accurate, almost like a photographic quality. Some real quality there. And I shared this on a forum today, and somebody said, "Oh, it's so good, that cartoon, it looks like an advert for the Scorpion," which it kind of does. It's right, you know. So that was quite impressive. And yeah, it's there was somebody who actually did a cartoon book of it, but it's no longer in print, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'd get my hands on one of those. Anyway, you can see here some of the construction. Here's some of the problems with the links that we had. And I say, you know, all looks fine and dandy, but actually there was a lot of work, clean up on every one of them, and then for it to not work. And it was here, the male side wasn't deep enough, long enough, and the female side wasn't recessed enough, and it wasn't a clean, good fit. It just wasn't well engineered at all, so it didn't work. Here's a couple of shots of when I got some of the photo etch and it's being built up. And obviously here's the final product, so, you know, as you've just seen, and we've got some other things. And this is the bullet cartoon that it came from. Anyhow, I will just, if I may, I think we call that a day. However, if I may, I'm just going to zoom you back out. I would like to, just before I go, give you a quick trailer for my forthcoming videos. Some of the vids we've done recently have been quite interesting, a bit different things, but several people have said, I keep getting comments that come back from people that have seen the videos of previous reviews, and a theme that is very common that I get is, "Oh, please do some more Wingnut Wings," which is easier said than done, of course, because these Wingnut Wings kits now they're no longer in production, they're becoming quite rare, and they're becoming incredibly expensive, and I just don't have any more to offer you. But I know a man who does, and he has agreed to let me show you some of them. I can't open them up, and you know, can't open the bags or anything like that. But the Wingnut Wings kits bags are so good that they don't reflect as bad as other people, so you can still see. And they're big, chunky kits with the most fantastic quality. You know, these are the best kits in the world. So we're going to be having some more of that. So what I'm going to show you is, if I can just get you in here. Whoops. We're going to have, this is a little preview for what's coming in the near future, a week or two's time. We're hoping to have the following. I'm going to review all of these 4 kits that you see before you. So we've got the Junkers D1, the first Junkers, and we've got the Junkers J1, which is a very elegant looking plane, apart from its engine sticking up. It looks like I looked at it and I thought it looks like a Spitfire the way. It's so elegant, like a Schneider Trophy or Spitfire type aircraft, but it has a huge engine sticking out. But a very interesting plane. Then we've got this AEG, the G bomber, the Mark IV, the later version, which one of the early heavy bombers from World War I, of course. And then the Roland C2, which is a very popular aircraft, and kind of similar looking to the Albatross in some respects, certainly in terms of its fuselage, but some very, very interesting World War I aircraft, and they are all going to be coming very soon. So something to look forward to. I always feel with these kits, especially because they are rare and they are so good, I always feel I need to do perhaps a little bit more research because I'm not the biggest expert on them at all. I need to do the research, so I thought rather than go dashing in and just say, oh look at this plastic, isn't it wonderful? I don't like that. I like to tell you a story and give you a bit of background about people that flew them and maybe some memorable incidents they've been involved in or interesting events and battles that they've fought in. So I shall do that. I shall go away and get swatting up. In the meantime, I'll put the Scorpion back on, I think, so you can have a look at him. And I will say, in the meanwhile, thank you very much for joining me. Been a pleasure to have you along. Hope you look forward to these new Wingnut Wings premium kits. You know, the creme de la creme model kits they are for sure. And we'll have those along to you in the next week or two. In the meantime, I hope your weather's better than ours. I'm all dressed like this because it's blooming freezing here. We've got sorts of storms of wind and rain going on, so that's why I'm dressed like this. It's freezing. It feels like January here. Anyway, thanks for joining me. Hope you'll give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you have, then don't forget to ding the notification bell, because that will mean that you'll get early warning when there's a new video about to be released, even if it hasn't actually gone live yet. So thank you for all your time. I hope you stay well. I hope you stay a bit warmer than I am. And in the meantime, thanks a lot. Stay safe. And thanks for joining me. And I hope to see you very, very soon. Thanks a lot and bye for now.